Hello and welcome to Griffiss Grounds. I'm your host, Melissa Tallman. Some of you may be asking exactly what is Griffiss Grounds? It's casual conversations over local coffee from Utica Coffee Roasting Company, talking about disruptive technologies from area leaders from industry, academia, and government. We have a local coffee and concepts that I'd love to go ahead and invite you into. First and third Thursday of every single month. Find out more information on Griffiss Institute's website, griffissinstitute.org. Today's first guest to kick off our podcast on these casual conversations happens to be none other than Dr. Michael Hayduk, Deputy Director of the Air Force Research Laboratory, Information Directorate, known to us here in Rome, New York as Rome Labs, where he has 50 published papers and 1 patent. I hope you enjoy today's session as we talk a little bit about the importance of international collaboration, where quantum is going, and we get a little bit of a peek preview into what really thrives and entangles Dr. Hayduk's lives. I hope you enjoy.
How did you get where you are today?
Great question, great segue there. So first, thanks for having me here. This is exciting being on the inaugural podcast here at Griffiss Grounds. Yeah, it's
Excited
great.
to have you.
Yeah, it's a true honor. So I always hate talking about myself, but we'll start there. So I was actually, if we go way back, I was actually an intern at Rome Lab in 1990, year before I graduated from Clarkson University. And
Good shout out to Clarkson.
yeah, speaking of Utica Coffee, founder Frank from Clarkson.
Small world.
Small world. Lots of Clarkson love in my family. So, graduated from Clarkson in 1991. Really didn't think I'd be coming back to this area like a lot of us. I had my sights set on grad school at some pretty big grad schools, or going to GE or Kodak or IBM. And the very influential person in my life, Ray Ertz, who ended up becoming director at the lab forever, kind of twisted my arm, wanted me to come back, give the lab a shot, and go through a program they had at the time that the Air Force had called Palace Acquire Program, or Palace Night Program, I should say. It's Palace Night Program. And that would allow me to go on, get my master's degree, doctorate degree, all paid for by the Air Force. And so I said, all right, why not? So I ended up working for a summer in the Photonics Center, knowing that I really wanted to go into photonics, then went on to University of Virginia, came back, worked at the lab for a year, then went on to Cornell University to get my PhD degree. Loved working in photonics, and it was just a booming area for the lab at the time. So that's where I ended up publishing a lot of papers, had some great coworkers, had some great times through the years. And then, as you mentioned, 2007, I had kind of a change in career. And what happened then, 2005, we had the Base Realignment and Closure Commission that changed the shape of the lab. So we had a group of Information Directorate people in Ohio, a group of Sensors Directorate people here in Rome. I was part of the Sensors Directorate in Photonics. They were directed to move, so Rome to Ohio, Ohio to Rome. So I had a choice, either move to Ohio or change careers, move to the Information Directorate. The choice was real easy for me, and certainly for my family. I was going to stay here in Rome. So I was offered a job and a chance to take over a branch, the Emerging Computing Technology branch, which was just a great opportunity. As my division chief, Jerry Janello, just gave me great freedom and flexibility. Said, I want to do new emerging computing architecture, so go out, put together some programs, maybe quantum, maybe nano, maybe bio, maybe optical. And so, we thought about it, really gave it some good thought as to where we wanted to go. And we had a lot of talent from photonics, knowing they weren't going to Ohio, moving over into the directorate. And it just made perfect sense at that time to put together a photonic-based quantum program. So about 2009 or so is when we really started quantum here in Rome, and kind of grew after that. And the fun part wasn't just quantum we did in that branch. We did nano computing, so took advantage of what New York State was doing out in Albany at College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering, CNSE. We hired Joe Van Nostra, and he went out there. We hired Paul Alsing for quantum. And then also neuromorphic computing. That started coming along, and we started working with IBM then. We started looking at these things called memristors. And so when I think about it, we really just kind of laid the groundwork for nano computing, quantum computing, and neuromorphic computing in those late 2007, 8, 9, 10 era. And then, moved on. Got a chance to become the division chief of that same division in 2011. And that was great because we're continuing to grow all the fun stuff we were doing in computing. That was the time we did the PlayStation 3, so we did 1,700 PlayStations, put them together as a cluster. We're DoD's largest interactive supercomputer at that time. And then our director decided he wanted to do something different, reorg the Directorate, so we brought the communications group into the computing group, so we put them together, kind of like peanut butter and chocolate, melded together nicely, and we started doing some really good things in communications as well, and some really important things. So I was in that job until 2018, and then we had a change in leadership here in Rome. We went from a senior executive to a colonel, so Colonel Lawrence became our director, and he subsequently needed a deputy. I applied, and lo and behold, became the deputy. So been doing the deputy position since 2019. Just started my 6th year. Just a dream job for sure.
Congrats.
Thank you.
We have the Colonel Timothy Lawrence Quantum Labs down on the first floor of the Inaugural Advancement Center, and you were pretty pinnacle of bringing in a lot of the work that was here in the Inaugural Advancement Center, working with an entire alliance of our county executive with Oneida County, City of Rome, Griffiss Institute, NICE Tech, CNY Defense Alliance, State University of New York, and New York State to go ahead and collectively get funding and the vision to have this open environment for innovation. What is your biggest success, do you think, that you conceive of bringing these lab spaces down into the Inaugural Advancement Center for fundamental research?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest success, and I do think it's just something I'm so proud of in my career, the fact that we were able to develop the Inaugural Advancement Center, and it just, one of our directors, George Duchek, had an idea to start this in about 2015 to do an off-site facility. And then, we started talking about it. George talked to MC at the Defense Alliance about it. And then at the same time, roughly 2016, the Army started an open campus institute. And really kind of the same principles, but it was inside their fence line. And so we were there for a quantum event, talked to the team about it, and they said, yeah, this would be great to have something in Rome like this. So I went, talked to our director, who at that time, wasn't quite sure if he'd like it or not. It was a different director, and honestly thought he'd hate it. But he actually loved it. And so we started, he asked, we put together a team. Dr. Wysocki became part of that team, kind of led it. And we went through a lot of iterations as to what we were going to do with Innovare. And we thought for the longest time it was actually going to be in Building 106 in the corner of 106. And, they had its pluses and minuses. And it turned out, we wanted it somewhere else. And AFRL confirmed that wasn't a good idea, headquarters, when we went to it. So they encouraged us to go out, talk to our partners out in the community, be a little bolder with our vision. And, all those partners you named, they did a great job. So I'm not going to repeat them.
Yeah.
They all came through for us. And when Colonel Lawrence came on board in 2018, he loved the idea. He wanted to go forward with it. So 2019, I still remember the day, August 2019, County Executive Pacente kicked it off in the hangar and said, we're going to do this, right? And this building was, we'll say it kindly, right? It wasn't a good looking place.
No,
it was, I can't even use the word I would say. It just wasn't in good shape, but through the pandemic, we're able to do the construction. County did an awesome job. Mike Wessing here at the time, Bill Wolf, just getting it up and running. And 2020, it was ready to go. I think like September 2020 was when it kind of had its soft opening, and it was a good time, even though it was a pandemic, just allowing us to see what we could do in quantum, how to do this different business model, because it was completely different for the Air Force to do things off-site, what rules we really needed to follow, what other rules we could do differently in processes and procedures. So it was a learning game for everyone, and we came together and we were able to do it. And I'm so proud of what the quantum facility has done. And I know we're going to talk about it throughout this podcast, but the partnerships are what it's all about, and having our local, federal, state officials to provide funding here, and especially the federal officials to provide the equipment for those quantum labs has just blown me away in what we've been able to do now with our different qubit technologies that we're working on, taking it out into drones now, and just the acceleration of not only the technology but development of world-class talent right here in Rome, New York.
Yeah.
Who would have known, right?
Who would have known? I think you would have known. And it's just surrounding yourself with other visionaries to make that a reality. Because you said, we opened up the Inaugural Advancement Center in September of 2020. May have been like October around there. And I believe we did the official ribbon cutting in July of 2021.
Right.
From that time period, I think we had seen, in the height of the pandemic, fully masked, all that, staying 6 feet apart, we still saw 4,500 individuals walk through the doors of Inaugural Advancement Center wanting to collaborate with scientists and engineers that were working at Rome Labs to be able to do fundamental basic research before it gets to that advanced aspect with other agreements with Rome Labs. Not only were our partners and our stakeholders and our state and federal legislators really helping to work to make a progress, there was a need for it and a lot for it. Where do you see the future going for quantum in that regard?
For quantum, I think it's such a critical technology area for us as a nation as a whole. When we think about economic competitiveness and national security implications, really quantum rises to the top. We talk a lot about semiconductors in the country, artificial intelligence. Quantum is right there. I almost think it was like the three-legged stool, if you will, and they're all certainly related. But quantum is something that the world is really competing to get a quantum computer. But for what the Air Force needs, it's more than just quantum computers. It's quantum sensors, it's quantum clocks. It's what we specialize in here in quantum networks and quantum communications, and of course, what will we be able to do with a quantum computer? So having that, we need an ecosystem like this, and certainly we've proven ourselves for the Air Force, for the DoD, to really have leadership here at Innovare, because we've been able to develop that ecosystem and bring in a lot of critical mass, not only with equipment and the facilities, but the human capital as well, and our talent base is just phenomenal. So where I see it going is continuing to grow that, continuing to really roll out technologies to the field, deploy technology. So the team has a great vision, and this has really been Dr. Soderberg's vision, is to put an ion trap on a drone and distribute entanglement, which means distributing a quantum signal from the ground up to the drone, and it's groundbreaking. So we're getting ready to do this. The team's just done a phenomenal job putting a drone together. We have Skydome where we'll be able to test this.
Right, yeah.
Right. So all those pieces come together, and people are certainly taking note of not only that experiment, but all the things that we've been able to do here in Rome. And I really see this continuing to grow, and it's a great time now to be part of this ecosystem with all that's been done in New York State in semiconductors, and it's continuing to grow. And I think a lot of times people don't make the connection that quantum really is intimately related to semiconductors. Fabrication techniques used for semiconductors, things like integrated photonics, all come with semiconductor roots. So quantum is just, if you will, kind of an offshoot of semiconductors and very much related. So having the growth of semiconductors in New York, integrated photonics, quantum ties into that so much and so well.
We have, when I say that we had like 4,500 visitors come through, a handful of them were local universities, colleges, and even middle and high school students coming in. What would you say to those individuals who are starting their careers in a STEM program that would make them be interested in understanding what they're doing and studying today could benefit the realm of quantum in the near future?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think certainly in the U.S. right now, we have such a lack of STEM talent, people not interested, kids not interested in going to STEM fields, and so there's a lot of opportunities across all of STEM. What I think as a whole, wearing my deputy director hat here, our C4I and cyber technologies that we work on, when we talk about AI, machine learning, cyber, advanced computing, neuromorphic computing, quantum, all those technologies need people to work on, right? And if we're going to be successful, if we're going to be competitive as a country, as an Air Force, we need the next generation of talent. And I can tell you, I grew up in that. I was a hands-on person. I wrote all those papers. I for days upon days would sit, bend over an optical table, doing experiments and trying to get things just right. It's fun, right? And it's rewarding. And knowing what you're doing now and what you're going to learn in quantum or those related fields, is going to benefit society, benefit the United States, is very fulfilling. And I think that's why we're so successful here at the lab. Not only recruiting talent, drawing talent in, but keeping talent.
Yeah. Are you always this even-keeled tempered? You're very humble and relaxed. I've seen photos of you in pure joy and excitement, and as well as deep thoughts, right? And
Yeah.
I'm alluding to a particular part of your life where, let's get you out of the quantum realm a little bit, right? And talk a little bit onto some home life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You recently, this past winter during a basketball season, enjoyed a really special season with your son. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
I'd love to. Sure. So I've been coaching at Clinton High School 16 years now. So long time with the school, and I think that's something a lot of people don't know about me. That come November until some point in February, I leave work, often head home for maybe 20, 30 minutes, change, have a quick dinner, see my wife, and then I'm heading to the gym. And my son's been, I coached my son all the way going through. He was at Clinton, went on to play at Clarkson, so another shout out to Clarkson there. And then came back after he graduated, and I was the JV coach then. He joined me as a JV coach. We did that for 2 years, and then after that, the varsity job opened up. Our coach had retired, so my son applied, got the job, and he's now in his 6th season. He'll be going into his 6th season, but our 5th season was really special this past year. Our record ended up being 17-7, and not that it's all about winning, but trust me,
Sometimes it's about winning.
It's about winning, right? There's winners and losers in this world. Don't be a loser, as I tell my kids. So, with that, here we go. So we had a great year. Just like any season, you get kind of your ups and downs. We knew coming in it was be special. We had a group of 6 seniors, just great kids, great players, and so much so as just the great kids that they were, coaching them. And we ended up, we won the league title. We lost the game we shouldn't have lost along the way, and that put us in a hole. But we had to go on a long winning streak, and we actually had one game that sticks out in my mind at Herkimer, where we were down, I believe, 22 points in the 3rd quarter. And not only did we come back to win that game, but we ended up winning by 10 points. And that kind of set the stage for what this team could accomplish. So it set the stage, allowed us to go out, win the league title. Nice picture there of us cutting the nets down. And then, going into the postseason, in our minds, we knew, all right, we had to win 4 games to win the sectional title. And beat Sequoia in our first game. They had knocked us off earlier in the year and ended up splitting actually the league title with them, so it was us and Sequoia. And then we, so that was settled. Then we had to go up to Lowville to play. And if you haven't ever experienced a game in Lowville, it's like no other place to coach or to play. It's like a scene out of Hoosiers in the 1950s. It's a very tight-knit community. And literally the game, I believe the game was at 6, and the doors opened at 5, and we'd gotten there about 4:45, 4:30 to shoot around and to loosen up. So we're all, in our shorts, t-shirts, just running through drills, shooting and stuff. And there's people showing up that early. Not only showing up, but setting down programs, saving seats. So come game time, that gym is packed and it's loud. And we got off to a great start, 13-0 run to start the game, and it just quieted the gym. And they battled back, great game. We ended up winning. But that was really one of the high points in our season. And then we went on and played Little Falls. In the semifinals, we'd beaten Little Falls earlier in the year. We were down 10. 2nd quarter, my son called a timeout. We were coaches were sweating bullets. Are we going to win this? Came back, we won, and that set us up to go to the finals at the SRC Arena playing Marcellus. Unfortunately, Marcellus was number 1 in the state. Really, really good team. They ended up beating us, but the fact that we got there, and it had been a long time. It had gone back to the early 2000s. Last time Clinton was in a sectional final game. Yeah, that long ago. So having that success, seeing my son coach those kids was really special, and it's cool because it's a family affair. We obviously I'm my son's assistant coach. People always ask, how does that work, you being an assistant? It's honestly great because he gets he gets the grief, he gets the stress, right? He has to put all the game plans together. If there's ever any parent calls, he's the one who has to deal with it, deal with the refs and all that. But it's the two of us, and then like I said, though, it's a family affair. My wife does the scorebook for both varsity and JV teams. My daughter-in-law is the team photographer, my son's wife. She does an awesome job. The pictures you see, she took. My son-in-law does the shot clock for us, a lot of games. My daughter's filled in as an announcer when needed. So it's just great having that whole family atmosphere to it. It's
You
a
got a
thrill.
tight-knit group there,
We do,
which is great. So winning is in the blood, though, because I have to give a little bit of love, some female love here, because I think there is a true tried winner in your family,
There
right?
is,
That
there
can
is,
kind of
absolutely.
hold something over everybody.
Yeah, so when I talk about Lindsay, announcer, not more than the announcer. She's the assistant varsity field hockey coach at Clinton, and she was a star in her own right coming through. She played 4 years of varsity, was captain, and barely stepped off the field during her time playing, and then came back to help out as a coach. And this year they won the Section 3 title, Class C title, which was just awesome. They hadn't won that title since I think they won a state championship back in the 90s, so an even longer time. So it was exciting to see. Makes me feel really good, right?
That is great.
Us kind of all giving back to Clinton in a school system that's meant a lot to us, and just seeing the relationship that my daughter has with the girls and my son with the boys, and just helping them all grow up and become, great members of society.
Yeah, good humans. I think we have a photo of you and your daughter as well. We'll take a look at it from her recent wedding.
Yeah, she got married to Alex Brown September 29th of this past year. Great wedding, very emotional day for me, for sure, giving away my little girl. So.
Yeah, I heard you had a very memorable first dance. What was the name of the song that you guys came out to that you had entered into?
So we did kind of a couple songs there. So we did a choreographed one. So we did a formal dance. My Little Girl by Tim McGraw, right?
Beautiful song.
Yeah, it is. Tears were flowing then, but we didn't want too many tears. So Lindsay had set up a surprise. Asked my wife if I could pull this off. My wife said absolutely not. Took a lot of work last summer, but then we danced to Tricky, and a song that I think everyone probably knows, and that was a lot of fun. I was surprised as I pull off. I literally, the day of the wedding. Got my speech in one hand, and I'm going over, and in my mind, I'm sitting there in our hotel room at the Turning Stone. I'm just doing the choreography around, making sure I get this right and don't mess it up. But worked out okay. I will say it concluded with me doing a somersault. Tricky part there was it's really hard to do a somersault on concrete, so I did more of a barrel roll, but that's all right.
Nice. Little quantum entanglement.
Yeah, maybe,
there, right?
maybe. Yeah.
All right. If we stay on the topic of winning, I think that this would be a win for AFRL, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll agree. So last August 2023, AFRL welcomed both U.S. Senate Majority Leaders Charles Schumer and U.S. Senator Christian Gillibrand to the Rome Labs here for some previously secured appropriations. They did an official ribbon cutting for the extreme computing facilities, the labs over there. We talked about the Innovative Advancement Center and having this collaborative space, but what does the Extreme Computing Facilities, ECF that we call it here, what does this mean for international collaborations and the future of quantum? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, we were so excited to have both senators here. I think New York State Senator Joe Griffiss said it was the first time we both sitting senators, New York senators, in Rome, New York at the same time ever, right? So that was a thrill in itself. And being able to invite them, because both have been very, very supportive of AFRL, and we've done it at Rome Lab. And to tell you a little bit about the Extreme Computing Facility, it's a $6 million facility that we had secured AFRL funding for a few years ago. It takes a while to get things going, the design and the actual construction. And what we turned into was our old storage area. We repurposed that. We had a computing facility where we actually had those 1,763 PlayStations. Those had, run its course. So we took this area, recrafted it to three state-of-the-art quantum laboratories, neuromorphic laboratory, a nano computing laboratory, machine learning laboratory, and our secure computing facility. So all those 6 labs, I believe, and software power for machine learning, just putting all those together. And the great part about that was it was state of the art, not only in what you see, but all the behind the scenes environmental control that you need for quantum computing, whether it's temperature, humidity, vibration controls, all that is needed, and it costs a lot of money. So we had that. But once you have the facility, how do you equip the labs? Well, luckily, we're very fortunate to have federal support to be able to get the state-of-the-art equipment. So when you're, adding in equipment like dilution refrigerators that go down to millikelvins or, fraction of a degree above absolute zero, at like minus 459 degrees, very expensive to do that. So we wouldn't be able to do that without the federal support. So having those facilities there, and then other facilities here at Innovari really form a very strong partnership. Our international partners pretty much are here at Innovari. As we mature technology such as quantum, we can then move it into our building 3, into the extreme computing facility, and that allows us to further mature the technology, get it closer to operationalizing it, and then eventually move it out into the field to benefit the Air Force. So it's kind of that pipeline, if you will, from an open area in Innovari where we're doing foundational and very fundamental research to more applied research, and then finally advanced technology development, which we call kind of code word 6.3 research.
Okay, so there's a lot of groundwork, a lot of movement in the quantum realm, and I know we're coming up on the 6th annual Quantum for International Conference or workshop that we're hosting here inside Skydome. We talked about this before, you had mentioned it earlier. New York State's indoor-outdoor UAS test site, so uncrewed aerial systems, allows for individuals to test their small to mid-size aerial systems indoors in a semi-anechoic chamber.
Yep.
And then be able to go ahead and have these hangar doors open and in a netted space still be able to fly them with some GPS signals with a working FAA tower that's right here within the Griffiss Business Technology Park. We've got keynote speakers this year.
Yeah.
Dr. Geis, Kevin Geis, the director of AFOSR in Virginia. And then day 2, we've got a keynote speaker, Dr. Amy Gunther, acting executive director for Quantum Sensors Challenge Program from the National Research Council in Canada. So
yes.
How important is it to have these international collaborations to be able to address global challenges? You had spoke before about having, students from the U.S. coming in and being able to talk with them. Is quantum something that is available everywhere in the U.S., or do we need to seek partnerships, and is that why it's important internationally? Absolutely.
So go back to the partnership word and collaborations, right? So that's certainly what we're all about at AFRL and in the Information Director is collaborations and partnerships. Quantum is no exception to that, and I think it's even more important in quantum in a very hard, difficult field such as quantum, where we're still figuring out a lot of things and doing a lot of research and development. But it is such a very important field in the world, and certainly science transcends borders. So being able to access technology and talent across the world is very important to what we're doing here in the Air Force, and certainly at AFRL and certainly at the Innovari Advancement Center. We'd definitely like to highlight the fact that quantum programs, so we often think U.S. has its act together in quantum. We have our National Quantum Coordination Office. We have the National Quantum Initiative Act signed in 2018. But other countries also have quantum programs, and if you take a look at it, depending how you count it, there's anywhere between 15 and 20 countries in the world that have national quantum programs. So it's priorities for other countries as well. So for us to partner with valued and like-principled countries is very important as we look to accelerate the technology. Because yes, the U.S. has quite a bit of money it's putting into it. We have a great wealth of talent, but other countries have talent as well. They have great ideas. And I think it's important pointing out as well, AFRL has always been in the international game. We have 5 worldwide offices that go out and scout technologies. So Tim Lawrence, Colonel Lawrence, previously, before coming to Rome, led our whole international effort. So it was very natural for him when he came here to really want to push forward on Innovar and have that international aspect to it. So absolutely, and we made it a point, and again, I credit Tim for this, Colonel Lawrence, for starting our Q4I, our international conference. And I still remember, so Heather Hage, your wonderful CEO, we were in a meeting one day and Tim came in and said, hey, I got this great idea. We're going to do an international conference. I said, great. This was like, spring 2019. And I said, all right, yeah, so what do you think next summer? We'll do it in 2020. We're going to do it this summer, about 3 months from now. Go figure it out. Heather and I kind of looked at each other, and anyway, we worked it out, and we ended up having it at SUNY Poly, so they kind of kicked it off. And now, lo and behold, as you said, we're 6 years later, and it's become a real foothold in the community, especially being able to go out and invite international partners in. And it's driven some new partnerships as well, there's no doubt about that. And reach people and universities, even small companies that we never thought we'd be able to access before.
Yeah. See, I'm going to look at my staff here too, because they always laugh at us whenever we come up with like these last minute ideas. We're like, all right, we're just going to go with it. Some of those are like the best ideas that we make work somehow. We have no clue. We just figure it out. But I think that's what makes this innovative ecosystem so successful, is that you have individuals who have that vision, that drive, that passion to move forward and progress the Mohawk Valley to be that key player in the role of technology that's really being disruptive for defense technology as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that reminds me of one thing. So, another Colonel Lawrence story. So the next year, right, 2020, all of a sudden we're in pandemic. So I'm thinking, all right, man, this is our out, right? We get kind of a year off of Q4I.
Good luck.
Yeah, well, Tim had other things. So again, Heather and I were in a meeting. Tim walks in and says, I got a great idea. And anytime Colonel Lawrence has a great idea, he'd be in a wonder. So he said, all right, we're going to do a virtual this year. We're like, all right, yeah, we can do a virtual. He goes, but we want to get people there, so we're going to make it a competition. So that year we framed it the $1 million Quantum U Tech Accelerator. So it was a mouthful.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Colonel Lawrence had some AFRL money and some AFOSR partnership money to put into it. He got his colleagues at the Navy at ONR to put in money as well. And so we were able to go over $1 million mark. And we ended up soliciting white papers, so across the 4 areas of quantum that we're interested in: timing, sensing, computing, and communications and networking. And we got over 200 white papers, about 250 white papers came in. And they were all competing for, we weren't quite sure how much money we'd have at the time, but it turned out $75,000 each. So we narrowed that down. Our team did a great job. I think they probably hated me for that, right? Having to sort through all these white papers. Narrowed it down to 35 finalists. And during the course of a couple days, those teams presented their ideas, and they were judged and graded on a rubric. And 18 ended up being selected and received $75,000 grants.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was a great idea, and we pulled it together, and it kept growing, right? And so not only did we do the grant part of it, our keynote speaker ended up being Neil deGrasse Tyson, which Colonel Lawrence said, what would you think if I got Neil deGrasse Tyson to speak? I'd say, you're a genius, Tim, as always. And he did. Right? I was on, I'm on a call one day. Heather was on that as well, and it was Dr. Roper from, senior acquisition executive from the Air Force with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and we brought those two in to speak at our conference and to have a dialogue, and that was amazing. And I think that event really just put us on the map for what we could do here in Rome.
Yeah, I think Colonel Lawrence loves a good challenge.
He does.
I think he likes to give it out, and I think he likes to go ahead and create these challenges, which are wonderful. If you could interview anybody alive, who would it be, and what would you ask?
Yeah, that's a great question. Live narrows it down a little bit. So I'll go back to my sports hat here, and Coach Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, someone I've always admired, looked up to. He won 5 national championships at Duke, coached 42 years there. I actually met him a few times. I went to leadership clinic that he had, because he actually did it.
Really?
Yeah, he actually did. He was actually part of the School of Business at Duke as well. So he was very much into leadership. So he's written books on leadership, and he used to do leadership programs. And so I went one year, met him, get to be part of a Duke basketball practice. Very, very
That's
cool
cool.
stuff. Yeah, but I'd love to interview him. The other person I'd really love to interview would be George W. Bush. Talk about certainly his presidency and 9/11 and then Iraq and Afghanistan and the other challenges that he faced. I mean, he ran the gamut from being, coming in very tough time, being a very popular president, and a very low point, kind of evening out. So many things I would love to ask him and talk about as well, and certainly how he handled adversity in his life.
Nice. We are almost out of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to go ahead and say before we fill up our cup one more time?
One more time. This has been a great talk. I think, the other things that we should talk about too, and international, a lot of times we talk about, we go out, we do grants internationally. Sometimes those turn into very big things. So AFOSR, and I'm sure Dr. Geis will probably talk about this, is they've ended up through the years having very pivotal roles in funding eventual Nobel laureates. And what I'd like to hit upon too would be that actually when we're doing work, and looking at the landscape and places AFOSR has funded through the years, two companies come to mind. Orca, which is a photonics startup in the UK, inside Quantum, which I think a lot of folks here in the US are now familiar with. They were actually at University of Bristol. Jeremy O'Brien was a professor there, had a startup. AFOSR funded him, and then that ended up turning into something bigger and bigger. And our researchers, Paul Alsing, Mike Fanto, started collaborating with Jeremy. And then the company kind of went stealth, and then it came out, and they've raised not only hundreds of millions of dollars, they just announced a partnership not too long ago with Australia for roughly $1 billion in funding. So that company has gone from small little seed grants to one of the most powerful quantum computing companies in the world, with Air Force funding to start it along its way. And Orca, not quite a $1 billion company, but selling modules, and they actually just announced last week selling two systems to University of Montana State, I should say, one of our partners, that we've gotten congressional interest item funding for. So seeing a connection between that kind of UK startup and Montana State that we're working with is a really neat connection for me as well. So again, just bringing together those different parts of the ecosystem is pretty cool in the quantum world, and shows the importance of those international collaborations.
Yeah. What does it mean for general terms? So if you're not familiar with the realm of quantum, internationally, you're national, you're sitting here, you stumble upon our podcast, and you're like, I want to work with AFRL. I want to get involved in the DoD. What does it mean to somebody who is just maybe got a mathematics background or a physics background or a mom and pop shop that's opening up? How do you explain quantum in a general?
Yeah, that's a great question, and people explain it different ways. The way I like to talk about it is, when you think about quantum, you think about everything in the world is made up of very fundamental particles. All the things we learned about in high school chemistry and physics, whether it's molecules, atoms, and what makes up atoms, electrons, neutrons, protons, packets of light, photons. All those things are really operating at the very fundamental level. So they all make up, everything we have, right? So those things make up things like this coffee cup. But the physics that govern those, when you get down to those very small scales, are much different, and it's a field called quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics has actually been around for over 100 years now. It's very famous scientists had worked out all the theory on that. It's a very difficult theory. But those rules of physics are much different, say, the rules of physics of this cup sitting here or the liquid in there. So when you get down to those levels, you can do a lot of different things that you can't do at the larger level. So you can have increased sensing capabilities, you can have increased timing capabilities, better clocks, you can have new computers, which we talk about with quantum computers, that can ultimately solve problems that can't be solved nowadays using special properties like entanglement or superposition. And then networks, secure communications at a level of security that we can't easily have today. So by being able to control, manipulate, and generate those states in those fundamental particles, we can create these new types of systems. But because we're at those very fundamental levels, that's where it gets very tricky. So that's why we need those very stable laboratories, very temperature controlled. Talked about, going down to millikelvin, which is almost absolute zero, which is about minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit. So being at that control that you need is very difficult. So that's why a lot of people can't easily do it. But we have the laboratories here that can do it. But that doesn't mean that you have to have a quantum physics degree to get involved, right? What we're seeing in our workforce as we think through things like workforce development is being able to take someone and maybe upskill them, reskill them if they had degrees elsewhere, and teach them quantum. Just have them enough to know about quantum to be able to use it. And similarly, all right, now once as we develop quantum computers and they're in their infancy right now, how do we program those quantum computers? So having someone literate in quantum computing, whether they were an engineer or computer scientist or a mathematician, they can then transition and learn how to do that. So that's how you get involved. And it's not only those quantum systems, building a quantum computer, because not everyone's going to do that or have the resources to do that. But think about all the parts that go into it, whether it's lasers, or your test and measurement equipment, or even your cabling that goes into it when you scale these systems up. So being part of that supply chain is critical as well. And there's so many needs in that supply chain for small companies, for small startups as well.
Awesome. I love to see the rise in the partnerships and the collaborations that have happened over just the last few years that I have been with Griffiss Institute. So I can only imagine how it makes you feel to see that success of the rise for quantum and the recognition that it's starting to go ahead and get of individuals and companies internationally and nationally that want to be part of what AFRL is doing.
Absolutely. It makes me feel really good when I look at, we have a sheet that I often give a talk at a conference, present of all our partners and the logos, and it's full, all right? And it continues to grow. And one of the things I do for our quantum team right now is I help out with the partnerships, not only advise the team, but help develop strategic partnerships. And they're always like, oh great, Mike's on a trip, he's going to come back, another company to talk to, or a whole stack of business cards of companies to talk to. But I think that's what it takes, because we can't work with everyone, but finding the right groups and people and making those connections is so important. Because if we're going to be successful in the US at developing quantum, it's going to take that ecosystem, and it's going to take all of us working together to be successful.
I love it. Best of luck with you.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Absolutely,
at the
can't
Q4I, here in Sky Dome at the Inaugural Advancement Center.
Sixth annual.
Sixth annual. I think we're making it a staple, so it's going to be the last week in June every single year.
That's what we're going to do. Absolutely.
If some folks are not able to make it this year, save the date for next year. Appreciate you taking your time out to go ahead and join us on
Absolutely.
The podcast.
This has been a ball.
Yeah, thank you very much. Folks, my guest, Dr. Hayduk from the Air Force Research Lab. Thank you for joining us today. A quick shout out to our sponsors, Utica Coffee Roasting Company, and also A&P Master Imaging, local brand apparel for all of your needs. Check both of them out onto our website as well. As always, stay curious, stay caffeinated. We'll see you at the next Coffee and Concepts.
First and third Thursday of every single month. Find out more information on Griffiss Institute's website, griffissinstitute.org.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.